Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated Legacy action. Today is the first midweek meta deck of the new Modern Horizons 3 season, where things have changed quite a bit, but as some things change, some things stay the same. So today we are playing a deck by Medvedev, who used it to reach the finals of a Legacy Challenge, and they split the finals. So it's one of the sort of two joint winners of that event. This is a mono-black Oops All Spells deck. So Oops All Spells, as the name implies, is only spells. The reason you run only spells and no lands is so things like Balustrade Spy and Undercity Informer, when you target yourself, you mill until you hit a land, so you're just going to mill your entire deck over. Your Narcomoebas pop out of the graveyard, then you dread return, bringing back the Thassa's Oracle, your library's empty, you win the game. So I played a mono-black version of Oops All Spells on the early access bit I had, so that was a video last week. I can't remember if it was the Tuesday or the Wednesday, but I thought Mono Black Oops All Spells would be really good now because you get to have 12 of these double-faced lands. So we do have lands in our deck, but then only lands on the backside, so they don't get caught by the Undercity Informer and the Balustrade Spy. So I figured this deck would be pretty good, and turns out it is. Pact of Negation is basically just a colorless counterspell in this deck because you are winning the turn you go, and it's kind of free to have. So what this deck also does here is runs a bunch of fast mana alongside it. So we've got Lotus Petals, Chrome Moxes, and Dark Rituals. We've also got the Entomb Reanimate plan, which I thought would be quite good too, because that gives you another way of just entombing this and then reanimating it. So it gives you a lot more redundancy in terms of the pieces you're trying to do. Also, sometimes you can mill yourself and then reanimate the Thassa's Oracle if, let's say, something happens to your Dread Return and you have a Reanimate in hand. That's a possibility of things that can happen. This deck has 4 Culling the Weak, which may look like a bit of an odd one. But the idea is you pitchcast Grief, then you Culling the Weak it, and that's the 4 mana you need to either play this and crack it, or just play this. And that's all you need. So 4 is the go number. So this gives you the perfect amount of mana. Now, I think this might be a little bit on the cute side, and I'm not sure how often it's going to be able to actually do anything. But if not, it's just getting printed to Chrome Mox anyway, so it's not really like it has to do absolute work here. Like we've got like it either goes with our Grief or it goes into the Chrome Mox. So that's 8 ways of making this card good, which is probably enough. We also have 1 Unmask for like a 5th Grief effect. So we might have 9 protection spells, arguably 10 if you include the Cabal Therapy, but normally this is something that comes out of the bin and does stuff, but we can cast on turn 1 if we need to. And yeah, that's the deck. It's a quick deck. It's very reliable at doing what it does. But it does go through the graveyard, which means it is susceptible to graveyard hate, which brings me onto the sideboard. We have got 4 Goblin Charbelcher. Reveal lands from the top of your library until reveal a land card. Goblin Charbelcher deals damage equals the number of non-land cards revealed this way to any target. That's basically all it says because we don't run any mountains. So what it's going to do is it's going to reveal our entire library, which is going to have no lands in, and it's going to deal damage equal to the amount of cards in our library. So again, this is 4 mana, which is the sweet spot we're trying to get to anyway. But then it's also got this extra 3 mana to activate it, which means we will need more mana if we want to win on that turn, which is why we have 4 Lion's Eye Diamond to do exactly that. So this is kind of our backup plan against decks with like Leyline of the Void or whatever. We just pivot into a Charbelcher deck. We've got a few Feed the Swarms to blow up some Leylines as well, so we're not completely cold to Leylines. And then we've got 3 Leyline of Sanctity to stop people targeting us with things like Endurance, or just if they're on the play and they've got like a Grief, Reanimate Grief type hand, we can blank that with a Leyline of Sanctity. So yeah, that's the deck. This is the one that Medvedev took to winning the Legacy Challenge, joint winning. They ID'd the finals. So pretty excited to try this one. A more refined build of the thing I threw together for the early access. So it's nice to see people working on it. And my instincts were relatively right that Mono Black would be a good place to go. I think you could definitely go into Blue Black if you wanted to as well as the sort of more traditional Green Black. Basically, green mainly gives you Force to figure out the sideboard, which isn't great against Vexing Bauble anyway. But it also gives you Memory's Journey as an option to beat things like Surgical Extraction. But enough of that. I'm going to jam some Oops All Spells, so come and join me. Remember to like and subscribe, and let's turn 1 some people. Right, what does our hand do? We have 1 mana. We have 2 mana. But that's where the mana stops. We can do better. What does this hand do? Nothing. How about this one? So we got 1 mana here. 2 mana. We don't have our creature is the problem. We don't have a reanimate for our creature either. And then we're going to have to go to 4. Lotus Petal, Entomb, Reanimate does win the game. No, it has to be Lotus Petal, Dark Ritual, Entomb, Reanimate. That does win the game. So we have a turn 1 here. We can put these cards away and hope our opponent isn't on a Force of Will strategy. Or we can draw a Force of Negation on turn 1. We are on the draw. Piece of hand disruption could also be pretty irritating for us. We want to see a Ponder or something here. A Thought Seize. I guess we're going to lose the Entomb, but it could be the Lotus Petal or the Dark Ritual. It could be any of these cards, let's be honest. Another Lotus Petal. I think we want to play these out because our opponent has shown us they are playing hand disruption. So we can also just draw one of our creatures, and we can just go with that because we have access to 4 mana now. Ideas Unbound. Alright, our opponent is quite likely to be playing Doomsday. Let's see what they discard off the Ideas Unbound. 2 Doomsday and a Daze. An Undercity Informer that we can cast around a Daze. And if it doesn't work, we can reanimate it. Right, so we're going to target ourselves using the Undercity Informer. This is going to mill our whole deck. We're going to get our Narcomoebas jumping out of the graveyard. Alright, our opponent just wanted to see our deck. Sure. So we're supposed to bring in these ley lines, I believe. I quickly chatted to Medvedev before I was recording this one. So we're supposed to board in some ley lines on the draw against blue-black strategies. I think it's the Culling the Weak that looks the most out of place to me. Yes, it is some mana that we can sort of generate and do stuff with, but it seems a little bit clunky with some of the other bits we got going on here. Like we have to have the grief for this Culling the Weak to work. So I reckon we're going to swap them out for some Leyline of Sanctity because we can afford to play a slightly slower game. Although our opponent is a combo deck that might just be able to bop us, so we need to keep that in mind too. We've got a lot of the things we want, but it isn't quite enough here. We could do like Grief, Reanimate, Grief, but what are we doing then? That's not what we came here to do. So we have the land. We can play a slow game with some Leylines of Sanctity. This is a weird one. I don't think we're supposed to keep a hand that looks like this. There's a lot of fast mana in our deck. This does feel too slow. But any Dark Ritual, Chrome Mox, Lotus Petal, that does... Alright, we're going to try and keep it. I'm not sure I should be keeping this hand, but I would like to try it out. So that's what we're doing here. We get 2 attempts at the combo. We get to protect our opening hand. There's quite a lot going on here. A Vexing Bauble. Okay. That does change things somewhat. So we can play guys and beat down. That's not really what we want to do, but it's a thing we're allowed to do. But if we find a Reanimate, we can mill our whole library and then just cast the Reanimate. Are we just going to get Doomsday right now? We are. We at least get a look at our opponent's deck and see how they're sideboarding once they've finished resolving their Doomsday. Okay, let's have a look at what they've got. So they've got Leyline of the Voids in their deck. Okay, that's really important to know. That is how they're trying to fight us. Understood. What are we doing here? I guess we'll play this untapped. Tapped, and our opponent will probably kill us on the next turn. If we had some mana, we maybe could try and Undercity Informer our opponent. That's always an interesting proposition, isn't it? Let's get a guy. Wonder why our opponent didn't win the game last turn. Right, they're just cracking the Vexing Bauble. That turns on our Pact of Negation, which is not ideal for us because we're going to lose this turn. A Thassa's Oracle with 2 cards in library. I don't really want to show them the Pact of Negation, so I think we just let them win the game here. Okay, so now that we know they're a Leyline deck, we need to sideboard differently. So I've been told that you're supposed to board out the Pacts against the Leylines, but our opponent is a counterspell deck with Leylines. Does that change things? Not big on these Culling the Weaks. And we're going to trim something like this. So we do have the combo, the other combo here. We're not going to board in the Feed the Swarms for Leylines. I don't think we're going to go that deep. This hand doesn't do anything. This hand does some things. What are we going to bottom here? Probably don't need double Pact. Right, beginning with a Leyline. Not a surprise. So I'm going to fire this in. Try and crunch up their hand. And then just apply pressure with our Undercity Informer. Force of Will, Lotus Petal, and some other stuff. We take the Force of Will. We can make our 2/3. Right, we are on the beatdown plan. Especially after seeing our opponent's Thoughtseize, there's no way we can like try and hold off for Belcher plans. Right, I'll play out this Lion's Eye Diamond before any sort of Vexing Baubles come down. Let's get the beats in. Our opponent isn't working with a lot. They basically kept a hand that stopped them from losing the game to our combo on turn 1. But now we kind of have this little backup beatdown plan. All right, they found the Thoughtseize mana off of the Underground Sea here. Yep, so we're going to lose our Pact of Negation. Looking for a little bit of mana and to put this Charbelcher into play. We can always do the whole Undercity Informer mill them when they're doing, once they do their Doomsday pile, if we think that's going to be good enough. Thassa's Oracle. It's not the one we wanted, that's for sure. Just want mana here. But this does imprint to a Chrome Mox, so it's not nothing. Right, if our opponent Doomsdays now, they're going to go down to 5. Right, they milled off of their Surveil land, so they didn't find what they wanted, which is good news for us. But it has gotten them closer to what they wanted. Fell the Profane. I will play this. So Dark Ritual off the top would be pretty good. It's a shame we can't do any Thassa's Oracle being played after we mill ourselves type jazz. I guess we could draw 2 Narcomoebas and 2 Chrome Mox or Lotus Petals, and we can cast the Oracle and then just mill ourselves in response. We have to watch out for the Stifle that we saw in our opponent's deck though. Right, down to 9. So if they cast a Doomsday, they can still pass the turn once. No Doomsday this turn. So now, if this connects one more time, they have to win. Ooh, that's good news for us. They probably have, well, they have this hard cast. Force of Will is the problem. But I think it's right to make our opponent use it. Because we can draw another Dark Ritual here. So they have to use their Lotus Petal or their Dark Ritual if they want to Force of Will this. Or they can pitch a blue card. But they can't let this resolve unless they're sat on a Stifle. Alright, so using the Dark Ritual. Because they've got plenty of black mana for the Doomsday anyway. Alright, so there is the Force of Will. Our opponent has 2 cards in hand. They need to Doomsday and win on the same turn now. We're going to get the Terrible Man beatdown. They also, if they do make a Doomsday pile, they have to work out where they put all the things for when we can mill them. Alright, we just got there. Like, this is what sometimes happens. Our opponent kept a hand that tried not to lose to the combo. And they successfully didn't lose the combo. But we get to do our own stuff here of just making a guy. And the fact that we have more just like black lands now means that our terrible beatdown plan is a little bit more viable than it was in terms of actually casting the guys. Alright, we're on the board. Let's go to round 2. This hand does not look good to me. Let's mulligan this. We don't have... hold on. If we have this into Dark Ritual, Reanimate, Entomb. That seems pretty good. We have a choice to make. Are we keeping a Pact of Negation or are we keeping a piece of hand disruption? Because we can Grief Pitch Unmask. Is that better than Pact of Negation? I think so. It allows us to see if the coast is clear first. We're also on the play, which is exactly where you want to be with this deck. So let's pitch this Unmask. Let's take a look at your opponent. Okay, they have 1 piece of interaction. We will take that 1 piece of interaction and we will win the game. Get the Balustrade Spy. Let's reanimate Balustrade Spy. Tag ourselves. Over goes the deck. Alright, our opponent's had enough. So what have we seen from them? Underground Sea, Dismember, Troll of Khazad-dûm. So I'm getting scam vibes here. So I've been told that against the scam decks you want Leyline of Sanctity. And then I think it's probably like 1 Reanimate, 1 Entomb, 1 Culling the Weak. Something like that. This stops them being able to grief us on turn 1. Or Thoughtseize if that's the thing in their deck. And we get to keep our pacts to deal with opposing counterspells on a turn we're trying to go. What does this hand do? It's got a lot of protection, but it requires more mana to do anything. I think we can do better. 1, 2, 3, 4 mana. This goes on turn 1, but loses to a counterspell. It doesn't feel like where I want to be. We do get a draw step. So we're probably bottoming... Do you want the Entomb to go here? I think it's the Entomb. We might be able to present a creature on 1 turn and then the creature again on the next turn. Right, they can grief us here. They can take our mana, or they can take one of our guys. We have the win if they have nothing else. Provided we can draw... Well, it depends what they take here, right? Alright, I've taken our Undercity Informer. So they left us with a Balustrade Spy that we can cast if we draw any card in our deck apart from an artifact. Agadeem's Awakening. I'll play this. We could play slower, but the problem here, if we do play slower, is our opponent might have Wastelands, and that really punishes us for trying to go slower. Right, so we're going to play this out. This gives us Reanimate as an out if they counterspell this. All right, we're going to see a Daze here, I think. But if we play around the Daze, they can Wasteland us. So it's kind of... All right, they're getting a Surveil on, and then presumably going to bounce this with the Daze. There it is. All right, so we're looking for Reanimate, which we can then cast around a Daze. So maybe I'm supposed to have more Reanimates than Entombs post-board. Right, there's the Undercity Sewers. A Balustrade Spy. Okay, we just need a Dark Ritual. Our deck has so much redundancy of trying to do the thing it does. Outside region. All right, our opponent is trying to get the game over and done with. That is an understandable position. A Pact of Negation. All right, that's good if we can draw a Dark Ritual in the next 2 turns. A Wasteland. Okay, that makes things more difficult. So I did mention that was a problem that we might face. A Grief. Okay, we can still draw Reanimate. They're going to take the Balustrade Spy or the Pact. Right, so if we just draw Reanimate, we win the game. We've got a couple of turns to do that. Leyline of Sanctity. You're not the one. Right, it's going to put us to 7. So if we take another hit, we don't get to Reanimate anymore. So it has to be this turn. It was not this turn. What is our solution? Another Wasteland. Don't believe we can have any outs to win in this one. If we play the Narcomoeba, we can chump block for a turn. And then we're in exactly the same position again. Nope, I think we'll just scoop it up. Alright, so now we're on the play. We don't require the ley lines anymore. So we can just go in with the turn 1 thing. I think we're supposed to take out 2 Entombs rather than 1 Reanimate, 1 Entomb. Just so we have a live draw for when we get counterspelled. Alright, we'll submit like this. This deck has basically been built with the blue-black meta in mind in terms of its main deck. So we can... No, because we have a Narcomoeba in hand, actually. No, this doesn't work. What does this hand do? 1 mana, 2 mana, lots of protection. But we're just going to get our hand picked apart by hand disruption if we keep that. Okay. I think we can keep this one, right? 1 mana, 3 mana. Yeah, sure. So we chuck this back in. And it's probably the Culling the Weak that goes here, isn't it? We can't make our guy on turn 1, which is the issue. But we can... We're very likely to make it on turn 2. And if we do that, and it doesn't work, we have the Reanimate to then go again. I think that's better than just making it on turn 1 here. Because if we put the Reanimate under the Chrome Mox, our opponent's kept 7 cards. They've got an answer to something. If we just slam it straight up, then we're going to be trying to draw the Reanimate. This way we can draw any card and get there. I think that's better than just raw dogging it. Because our opponent would go to 7 if they had no interaction on turn 0. Because you can't keep a 0 interaction hand. Alright, so they can take our Dark Ritual if they want to. Or our Boggart Trawler. But this means they have other interaction as well as the Grief. Which is not really what I wanted to see. Right, taking the Dark Ritual. They are reanimating their Grief. Sure. If their hand was like Force of Will, blue card, and Reanimate Grief, then it's tricky. Undercity Informer. Okay, we're getting there. I'd ideally not like to have to burn these guys. So if this is just a clock, we've got a few turns to try and draw some more mana, which is a very abundant thing in our deck. We don't play around days if we go now. If we wait 1 more turn, we do, so I'm going to wait 1 more turn. I just don't want to have to pitch one of these black creatures, because our opponent must have kept their hand being able to disrupt us. So I believe our opponent has a Force of Will. If they reanimate this Troll of Khazad-dûm, then that's definitely going to change the clock dramatically. What they could have done as well is they could have reanimated our Undercity Informer and targeted us and just milled our whole library out and let us die in our draw step. That's the thing that a lot of people forget to do against the Uxal Spells deck. Alright. So play this. I would like to pay 3 life. I would like to play a Chrome Mox. I'm going to imprint this Culling the Weak. I'm going to play the Undercity Informer a round of days. Force of Negation. Okay. A little bit more mana would be nice. What do they pitch to that? Okay, an Engineering Explosive, that can kill our Chrome Mox, which is a little bit rude. We've got Reanimate as well. Yeah, so our opponent could have won this game a lot earlier with the Grief play. They could have won the game on turn 1, but they decided to let us have this game. An Undercity Informer, and we are just dead to what they have on board. Yeah, our hand was a little bit awkward, which is one of the problems with this deck sometimes. You're kind of at the mercy of your opening hand. Like if we'd have just gone for it on turn 1, I'm pretty sure our opponent would have... I guess they Force of Negation are Dark Ritual. Because I have to imagine that was the card that they were sandbagging from the start. Because you can't keep a 0 interaction hand when you're a deck with counter magic, right? So yeah, bit unfortunate. We are 1-1. Let's go to round 3. Right, we're on the play, which is not a bad place for us to be. Our hand is a bit slow. I think we need to mulligan this. Yeah, we get to do the Grief thing that we wanted to do with the Culling the Weak, right? So we play this. We pitch cast Grief, Culling the Weak hit. Yeah, that seems a-okay to me. What are we getting rid of? Is it just an Undercity Informer? And then we can keep the Reanimate in case things go really pear-shaped for us. Our opponent's mulliganing quite deep. Right, so we'll play this. I'll pay 3 life. We will Grief, pitching Unmask. Let's see what our opponent's working with in their 5-card hand. Ah, our opponent is on a similar level of nonsense. I will take this Pact of Negation. I will Culling the Weak here. So our opponent's hand doesn't have any... our opponent's hand doesn't have any green sources here. Like Elvish Spirit Guides. So we're supposed to target our opponent here and see their deck to get the information. This way, they don't see our entire list, but we see their entire list, and then they die in their upkeep. All right, are we on the full mirror here? I believe we are. Oh, well, we won the die roll. But yeah, so in that situation, because we saw the Undercity Informer in our opponent's hand, it meant when we know we could have a look at their entire deck and get that information. So we know exactly what we're playing against here, and it's the mirror. The full-on mirror. Like... What are we supposed to do here, right? Our opponent's just going to beat us on turn 1, then we're going to beat them on turn 1. That's pretty much how it's going to go here. I guess we just submit. I don't believe... If they're on the mirror, then I don't think they're going to be running Leyline of the Void. Our hand does not win on turn 1, so we have to hope our opponent mulligans a lot, and then we manage to get there. Somehow. This hand does also not win on turn 1. So we need a turn 1 hand, which is what our deck is supposed to do, to be fair. And we need our opponent to have a hand that for some reason can't win on turn 1. Okay, so we get rid of this one, and then we can just go on turn 1 here. This. All right. Go on, opponent. Show me what you're working with. A Dark Ritual. An Undercity Informer. Do they have the mana to activate it? They have a Leyline of Diamond. Okay, so they've boarded into their Charbelchers. That's interesting. I would like to see how they've sideboarded here, so show me what you got. If they target us, we obviously just scoop. That'll do. Kind of using Undercity Informer the way it was intended. Okay, so now it's our turn to do the same thing to our opponent. Do we want Lion's Eye Diamonds? Our opponent's boarded them in. Maybe they know more than we do. I don't think that's where I want to be. No, I think we just submit. Submit the game 1 deck. Just ships in the night here. Turns out winning die rolls pretty good. Our opponent can't interact with us on turn 0 outside of Pact of Negation, which will make them lose the game in their upkeep. This does not play. 1 mana, 2 mana, nothing. This does not play either. We've got to go deeper. So the way we lose this is if we mulligan too much to try and find the win. Because our opponent should be able to win the game on their first turn. So we're going to need a hand that wins on turn 1, or possibly a hand that can strip apart their stuff. So I might keep a low, if we're on like 3 or 4 cards. Yeah, if we're on like 4 cards, I would probably keep Grief, Land, Reanimate, black card, and just try and just scam our opponent and beat them down with a little bit, and hopefully that we draw better than they do. We've got an Entomb, but nothing else to do with it. I guess we are 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can make the guy on turn 1, but we lose because our opponent probably goes off on turn 1. Is there a 3-card hand that wins us the game? No. That is a damn shame. I don't think there's anything we can do here unless we want to go even lower and just try and pick a hole in our opponent's hand, because we don't think... Our opponent's got 7 cards. I think we have to mulligan here. I don't think winning on turn 2 works in this matchup. I think we have to disrupt our opponent instead. Again, this makes a turn 1 Undercity Informer, but that's not good enough. Do I go to 2 cards and try and disrupt our opponent? I guess so. No, we got nothing. Yeah, we got nothing. Yikes. Yeah, that was pretty bad. Like, our deck is pretty reliable at doing its stuff. You should be able to... I think the percentages on it are like 90-ish% roughly. I haven't done the maths. But in terms of being able to go off on turn 1, it's pretty likely. It's about the amount of protection you have a lot of the time. But yeah, this was just our hand not doing it. All we needed to do was just have a turn 1 kill, and we were just 1 card away. Yep, that's a bit of a pain, but we lost to the mirror, so no shame there. Even though we did win the die roll, which is what this game should come down to. But at least we showcased that this deck does have a fail rate. Let's go to round 4. We are on the play. What does our hand do? 1 mana, 2 mana, make this. On like turn 3 or 4 is no good. That's mulligan. So what do we have now? So we do Chrome Mox, Imprint, Grief, or Entomb, or whatever. And we're still a little bit of mana away. I think we're going to go a bit lower. Not feeling great about this one. Let's go to 4. Okay. This is acceptable. Okay, we need to play the Undercity Informer on turn 2. And hope that we draw the thing. Or we can draw a land here. Or a Dark Ritual. Ancient Tomb. No play. Alright. We've dodged a bullet there. Haven't dodged that though, have we? Okay. We'll play out 2 Lotus Petals. Obviously not playing our Chrome Mox because that will imprint our win condition. Eye of Ugin. Thought not, sir. Well, well, well. That's gone very poorly for us. Goodbye, the only thing we had... our hand actually did. Now, we saw Wasteland from one of these decks earlier, so I'm actually going to play this out as into a Chrome Mox instead. So we played against... last time I played against an Eldrazi deck, they had Wastelands. I think that was in the video that went out yesterday. Played against an Eldrazi deck that had Wastelands. An Eldrazi Temple. Okay, so they get to tutor for a land. A Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth. This allows them to cast a Reality Smash if they want. Oh, we're just casting another Micro Spawn. And then this can go and get them another land. And they can cast another Micro Spawn if they want, because the land comes in untapped. And combo it off. So they bash us for 5 this turn. Next turn it's 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So we are dead next turn. I don't believe there's anything we can draw here that wins us the game unless we can chump block and then reanimate. Nope, we're just dead. Okay, that didn't go amazingly. I believe our opponent has Leyline of the Void in their deck, which means we're supposed to board in these things and we're supposed to board out the Pact of Negation, the Unmask effect. We probably need to keep Culling the Weak just so we can actually get that amount of mana, and the rest probably has to come out of the Entomb Dark Ritual type package over here. So we're looking at something along these lines. And a couple more reanimates. Okay, I'm expecting to see Leyline of the Void. What does our hand do? Nothing. What does this hand do? We can Grief reanimate Grief, but that's not very exciting, is it? Yikes. I guess we keep and hope that they don't have Leyline. Like, we could keep this and get rid of another piece of mana. so that we have at least the option of removing a Leyline if they have it. See, they got the Leyline. Oh, they didn't have the Leyline. Maybe we do get to win now. Our opponent appears to be F6 over there. Alright. Let's get some Narcomoebas into play. I would like to Cabal Therapy my opponent first and see if we can see what they've sideboarded. I don't believe they have a surge extraction or anything. I just want to have a look at there. Once more time, Ratchet Bomb. Okay, nothing unusual there. So Dread Return, target the Thassa Oracle. And we win the game. So we didn't see a Leyline there. Did see Hand Disruption though. They can't Hand Disrupt us on turn 1 by the nature of their deck. Unless they have multiple Simian Spirit Guides. Elvish Spirit Guides. Do I want to bring in these Leylines of Sanctity to stop Thought-Knot Seer from jamming us up? Or do I just believe in... I think we're just going to believe in this deck and the possibility of them having Leyline. Why wouldn't they have mulliganed to Leyline is the question. I don't know why you wouldn't mulligan to Leyline in that situation. Also, playing things out when we've seen a Ratchet Bomb is something to keep in mind as well. Our hand does nothing, so we're going to send that right back. Send this one back as well. 1, 2... We've got some mana here, but I think we can do better. Okay, I think we get rid of Narcomoeba. We just want to keep loads of mana here, don't we? I guess. So we get rid of a Grief. I guess the other one has to be a Reanimate. Okay. I think this is better than going to 3. Gives us options for being able to try our combo out. A Wasteland. They're just going to Wasteland us straight up? They are. So this is one of the reasons I want to just keep a mana heavy hand. Don't believe our opponent runs Chalice of the Void, but it's possible. And the Wasteland. Now we almost have enough mana to go off here. We do need to be careful about things like Kozilek's Command being able to kill our creature. But we also have to worry about Thought-Knot Seer taking our cards. A Lion's Eye Diamond. I think I will play this Chrome Mox. And I will imprint this Culling the Weak. And I will play this Lion's Eye Diamond. But I will not play out the Lotus Petal. I can Ratchet Bomb us and take 2 things. But I don't want them to take 3. And this means if they Thought-Knot Seer us, they've got a choice of Mox or Lotus Petal. Oh, we got an end step thing. Disruptor, Flute. Alright, so they can name Dread Return here. And that's really good. This card is pretty cool. Like instant speed, Pithing Needle. That also makes spells cost more. Which is quite nice to... What? Activated... This doesn't do anything. That's a really weird play. Ratchet Bomb. Okay, we're going to lose our things here. I did say this might be a thing we have to risk. It's kind of the pinch of playing around the Ratchet Bomb, which is probably a 2 of in their deck, versus playing around the Thought-Knot Seer. Like, if we draw one of the guys, we do win the game. Another Disruptor Flute. What is this one name? Goblin Charbelcher. Okay. So we're not on the Charbelcher plan anymore. And our Lion's Eye Diamond's gone anyway. Don't Thought-Knot Snare. Thought-Knot Snare? Thought-Knot Seer me. That's what we don't want to see here. Just like a big guy is annoying, but we can usually beat a big guy. Okay, so we're going to blow up our land here. Not a bad turn for our opponents. A Dread Return. That is not what we want to see. We can't pitch that to Chrome Mox. That's one of the worst draws in our deck. They can start tutoring for Eldrazi now. So I think our window is gone. Kozilek's Command. Sure. So they're going to look for a new card and make a bunch of 1/1s. So if this finds the Lord, then they can just play the Lord and have lots of damage for next turn. Because these will all get +1/+1. Alternatively, they can find something really sweet to play off of the Eldrazi spawn right now. Here goes something. It's going to be like a Reality Smasher or something. Nope. More and more guys being pinged off. Another Kozilek's Command, sure. So they just kind of chain these until they find what they want, more or less. If they had a glaring Flesh Raker in play, we'd just be dead while they're doing this. This Eldrazi deck is pretty sweet. It's on my list of things to record with, so you'll see it on the channel at some point. I used to play Eldrazi back in the day, and we were just playing rubbish like Eldrazi Mimic. It's only been some upgrades since then. Thorn of Amethyst. That's not great for us. I think we can call this one. We can't cast anything. Yeah, that was rough. It wasn't necessarily what our opponent did that mattered in this matchup, to be honest with you. It was the fact that we had to mulligan so much when our deck is supposed to be so redundant. That was a little bit sketchy. Alright, so we're 4 rounds down and we're only 1 and 3, which is no good. So we need to go to the final round and see if we can pick up that 2-3. This is a really interesting hand. Any other mana we get to go, we get to do turn 1, we can grief our opponent, entomb the creature we need to, and then reanimate it with Pact of Negation backup. Just by having this land. We're not amazing against hand disruption. And we're not great against wasteland. But we have a lot of mana in our deck. If we draw any mana, we do get to go with multiple pieces of protection. Our hand is relatively resilient, but it only has 1 piece of mana, which is the main issue here. I think I'm going to mulligan, but I think there's arguments you can make for that one. Okay, this looks like something I want to keep. So we've got a land and a Dark Ritual. And another land and a Spy. Alternatively, we unmask, target ourselves, reanimate the Spy. Okay, so we take a Spy here. And... is that right? Or do we take one of our lands? I think we lose the Spy here, actually. Yeah, we're just going to reanimate our Balustrade Spy on turn 1. Devourer of Destiny. So our opponent is on an Eldrazi deck, which should be pretty slow to do its thing, compared to what we're doing at least. An Eye of Ugin. I will play this. I'll pay 3 life. I'll unmask, targeting myself. I will exile this Dark Ritual. I will get rid of this Balustrade Spy. I'll reanimate the Balustrade Spy. We'll win the game with it. Our opponent shouldn't have any main deck stuff to disrupt this in their deck. So our Narcomoeba are jumping into play. I'll fire off a Cabal Therapy at our opponent. Do they want to conceal information from us? Or not? Alright. So, Eldrazi. I think they run ley lines. I still think that's what's happening here. Pact. Unmask. Therapy. These. Culling the Weak feels kind of necessary if we're trying to do the Belcher, but it just doesn't feel like a good card. Another Entomb. So trim something like this. Our hand doesn't do anything, so we're going to get rid of this one. The reason I boarded out one of the Undercity Informers is because the person who won the challenge with this deck said that that's what they were doing against leyline matchups. Because they're boarding in other win conditions. So I'm going to take the advice of someone who knows what they're doing more than I do. 1 mana, 2 mana. We've got a Belcher in a few turns, but that might be too slow here. If we can draw a Grief, this hand would be great. I think I want something faster. Alright, we can keep this. Get out of here, Dread Return. Get out of here, Culling the Weak. So we can turn 1 the Balustrade Spy. And Eldrazi Temple. Challenge the Void where X equals 0. A little bit rude. Oh, Thassa's Oracle. What are you doing there? You can't be discarded very easily. We need to generate a lot of mana and Charbelcher. So we need a land and we need some more rituals. Okay. I'm going to bring him back in this Undercity Informer, I think. I really don't like these Culling the Weaks. They feel bad. I don't think we have enough stuff to fuel them. Check out 1 Feed the Swarm. 1 mana. 2 mana. Where's the 3rd mana coming from? Our opponent's going to make things really difficult for us if they get a turn, so we have to try and win on turn 1. Pretty disgusting looking hand as well. Let's send that one back. No initial mana. Right, we're down to 4 cards. 1 mana. Does this do it? So this is 1 mana, 3 mana, 5 mana. So we can play the Belcher on turn 1. So we get rid of these 2. I guess we have to get rid of the diamond, play the Belcher on turn 1, and if our opponent doesn't wasteland us, we do win the game. Our opponent seems to have kept 7 though. What is it with my opponents always keeping 7 today? I'm happy for them though. I'm just miserable having to mulligan a lot, but our deck is built to do this. Alright. Kept a Leyline. Unfortunately, they didn't mull for it. Because our opponent is a Thought-Knot Seer deck, we do have to just play this out and then try and hit the rest of the mana we need for this. I think that is better than holding for a turn. Maybe if we hold for a turn, we still need 2 more mana though. So the only draw that would make sense is if we drew another Dark Ritual. But then we could get bodied by Chalice or something. So I think we do just have to get our win condition out there and then try and assemble the mana to activate it. Disruptive Flute is a thing that can, unsurprisingly, disrupt us. A Wasteland, that's terrible news. A Chalice, so we can't draw the Lotus, the Lion's Eye Diamond. Come on, deck. Why are you going to do that to me? Alright, Boggart Trawler. That's what we want to see. Dark Ritual wins us the game if we draw it. We have already played 2 of our Dark Rituals though, so we're going to see a Thought-Knot Seer. Just an Ender Swarm. Feed the Swarm. You do not do anything here. You can blow up the Leyline, but I don't really want to spend 4 life on blowing up that Leyline. You see a Reality Smasher. Micro Spawn. So we're going to lose our land here. Yeah. And our opponent gets another land. The old mull to 7 with Chalice, Leyline, Wasteland is pretty good. How do we go about beating this one? Right, so they're blowing up our land and getting a Wasteland for our next land. Okay, so now we have to play... If we get a land, we're not supposed to play it out. We're supposed to hold it in hand and try and draw a Dark Ritual. Reanimate. You do not do anything. I don't think we can win with that. Yeah, we just got bodied by Eldrazi again. Who'd have thought that the Prison-y deck would cause us some troubles there. Alright, what a miserable result. A 1-4, but every single round we lost was a 1-2. So we were in the games, and our opponents didn't really beat us. We kind of just beat ourselves a lot of the time. So let's talk about this list. So the deck's supposed to have a pretty strong and reliable rate of going off. And it didn't feel like that today, which is somewhat upsetting. I think the Culling the Weak felt like a real burden a lot of the time. We got to do it once, I think, off of the Grief, but then we were just looking at this card and it was like, okay, we just have to mulligan because this card does nothing in our opener. I would have rather have had 3 more Unmasks so we could at least do like Reanimate lines, right? So we could like hit one of our own guys. That would have felt better than having these Culling the Weaks. And I think that might be a direction you could potentially go if you were to board these out, board these into like 1 Animate Dead and 3 Unmask. I think you just end up with a better deck. The Culling the Weak just felt really, really weak to me. I was the one being culled by it. I do like having the Reanimate Entomb plan. When I first like brewed up, obviously I'm not really an Oops player. I've played it every now and then for the channel, but when I played it in the early access and I sort of built my own list, I thought was pretty stock. I had the Entomb Reanimate package just as another way of finding it. Obviously this fits quite nicely into, you know, you can Dark Ritual and just go. So I think that's where you want to be. If you want to play Culling the Weak though, I think there is an Oops list that plays Culling the Weak, and it probably runs some amount of like the 0-drop creatures, like Shield, Sphere, and that sort of junk. And what you do with that is you also run Mox Opal as starting mana is a thing that you have as an opportunity if you want it. And that could be a different route to go if you do want to play the Culling the Weak. But is that better than just unmasking yourself and reanimating your guy? Unlikely. It might be. Also, it gives you more redundancy for interaction with your opponent, so you kind of play like the mono-black Reanimator decks used to play, or even the red-black Reanimator decks used to play, where they'd have all their griefs they can hit your opponent with, but they also have these Thought Seizes that can hit themselves or the opponent. They have Unmasks that can hit themselves or the opponent. Because when I played this, I had 4 Thought Seize and 4 Grief. I think the Pact of Negation should definitely be in this deck. But I'm just not really convinced by this selection of things. Alternatively, you could play some Spirit Guides just to have some actual mana, because you're trying to get to the colourless mana of this. So the old Oops or Spells decks before Modern Horizons, their problem tended to be they couldn't access black mana that effectively. That was what you would lose to. That was your inconsistency when playing the deck, is that you couldn't always get the black mana you needed to cast your game-winning spell. And it used to do some weird lines with Summoner's Pact to go and get Wild Cantor to then turn your Spirit Guide mana into black mana, and they go through all these hoops. And that felt not great to me. But what this deck's done is it's gone, okay, we've got all of these lands, so we've secured the black mana, but then now it feels like we need more just mana in the deck. I wouldn't be opposed to having just some Spirit Guides just to pay for the colorless mana on this, because like I said, we've got the black mana now. We solved that issue, but it feels like we've gone sort of like one step forward and then one step back in a different way when we had something that worked and we could just fix that old deck instead. But I do think mono black oops makes sense. I just think we need to have more ways of getting like raw mana to get these out. Obviously, we did get very unfortunate with some of our mulligans today. Like our hand, I think the percentage chance of being able to hit a turn 1 hand when you in your like 4 to 7 cards when you're mulliganing that much is like ridiculously high. It's the most consistent turn 1 combo deck in the format. But we just had a little bit of a poor deal today. But I don't think that necessarily means, just pin it all on luck. I think there's definitely some deck building stuff here, and I think the Culling the Weak doesn't feel like where I want to be. Now, obviously, Medvedev won a challenge with this, which is, you need to get a bit fortunate to win a challenge, but you also need to know what you're doing and play quite well at the same point and know your sideboard mapping out and stuff like that. So I don't think this deck is fully there. I think Oops is definitely going to be tinkering around in the edges. You used to see the odd mono black Oops decks before with like Shield Sphere and all those sorts of things to make use of Culling the Weak. And I think that is a thing you can do. But I think trying to use Culling the Weak when it only really goes with the grief is something we mentioned at the top. And I think it kind of was shown here that it was not really where I wanted to be a lot of the time. It does help you cast things like Charbelcher, but the Charbelcher plan is not my favourite because it kind of falls to a lot of the same problems. Because people are just trying to disrupt you with prisony pieces a lot of the time, or they can stop your mana or whatever. Like, it's fine as a plan. I think the plan I played on the early access was just play like a bad scam deck, since we've already got like this scam package. If your opponent's mulliganing to hate against you, why not just board into like Dathly Void Walkers, Orcish Bowmasters and stuff and just get people with your griefs? And that felt all right. I didn't have any problems with that. We weren't fully into it, but I think I should have gone more fully into it than I did. But that's certainly an option. I think there's a lot of workings out to be done with these Oops decks. They're not just like, okay, this is the stock list. I think there's going to be some ebb and flow between what you can do with them. I really don't like the Pact of Negation Summoner's Pact builds at the moment because Vexing Bauble is everywhere. And if your answer to Vexing Bauble is Vigor, that's not going to work great for you. And I think you do want the 12 black lands. They feel really, really important. But whether or not we want some additional Spirit Guides to help is what I would consider as well. All right, that's my thoughts on this one. I'm no Oops expert at all. But that's just my sort of thoughts on the deck. All right, thank you so much for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe. And goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget turbo depths as well as 3 tiers of support. A low-cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed turbo depths guide that is updated every month as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.